Quite often at the end of a subdivision surface modeling project, you'll need to bake the subdivisions, or burn them in and make that level of detail permanent. There are many reasons why you might want to do this. For example, maybe you're exporting to an application or an engine that does not support the OpenSubdivision algorithm. A very common reason for baking subds is to allow fine adjustments. We cannot access the individual subdivided polygons. Therefore, we can't perform low-level rigging or modeling operations. If I select the object and go to the Modify panel, we've got an OpenSubdiv modifier, and if we disable ISO line display, we can see the individual polygons, but we cannot select them. The tessellation or division of this object is dynamic. We can change the number of iterations here to 1, 2, or 3, or whatever we want. I'll bring that back down to a value of 2. It is possible to select these subdivided polygons with a selection modifier higher in the stack, but then we might run into issues with performance, or future-proofing, or topology dependence, as we discussed earlier in the course. It's almost always a better move to simply collapse the stack and delete all these modifiers by converting the object to Editable Poly. In this case, I want to do that so that I can separate the seat cushion into two pieces, the soft cushion above and the plastic base below. Another way we might try to do this is by detaching them and then subdividing them separately, but in that case we might get a gap or an overlap at the open border where there's supposed to be a joint between those two models. If we bake in the subdivisions and then detach the polygons, we can be sure that those two parts will align perfectly. Now let's bake this and make the level of detail permanent. With the object selected, right-click in the viewport and choose Convert to Editable Poly. Now let's select the polygons to detach, go into Polygon Sub-Object mode, orbit around with Alt and middle mouse. I've got a random selection here. Let's deselect those polygons by clicking out on Nothing, and make a precision selection using the top viewport. Switch to the 4 viewport layout with Alt-W. I want to select 16 polygons right here near the origin. So here are 4 of them. Hold down Control and click on those. Get in closer, Control-Alt middle mouse, and Control select the polygons around them as well. We just want those 16 polygons right near the center. And then grow that selection outward. Click the Grow button. And if you made the right selection, when you get to this area here where we have 3 polygons meeting, and that selection looks like it does on my screen, then you know you have the correct selection. Just keep growing that selection out, and eventually you'll get to that corner that we created with the crease tool. I'll tumble around in the perspective view so I can see that crease, and continue to click the Grow button, and then stop when I get to that crease. If you go too far, you can use the Shrink button. Okay, we've selected the polygons of the seat cushion. We want to detach the base to a separate object. That way we won't need to rename this object. So let's invert the current selection. And from the Edit menu, you can choose Select Invert. Now all the other polygons are selected, and we can detach them. We can use the Detach button on the Geometry panel of the modeling ribbon. Click Detach, and you get a dialog box in which you can enter some options. The default behavior is to chip this selection off to a new object. We could change that. If we wanted to, we could detach to an element within the current object. We would not be creating a new object. Or we could detach as a clone. We could create a partial copy. In other words, we wouldn't change the current model, but the selected subobjects would be detached out to a new object. To separate two objects, we want the default options. Just give the new object a name. I'll call it Chair Task Seat Base. And click OK. And now that's done, we can exit out of Polygon Subobject mode, maximize our perspective view with Alt-W, press the Z key to zoom out, and now we've got 2 separate objects. That's how to bake subdivisions to make low-level modeling adjustments. And it concludes our chapter on subdivision surfaces.